Hello, my friend. I am CharLee Simons, talking about two things you're never supposed to talk about: politics and religion. One decides what life is going to be like here on earth. The other one decides what life is going to be like when we leave it. Makes it very important. The show's called Do Not Talk. For that very reason, we do talk about those things. Stuart Rhodes is my guest on today's show. Stuart Rhodes. Oath Keepers, January 6th, 2021. J6er. That's who's on. I'm so glad to finally get to meet him and talk to him and hear his story and hear what he's doing now. We just celebrated the 100th days of President Donald Trump as president number 47. A significant, historical milestone that the media all but ignored, and those that did report, it was nothing but negative. Would you expect anything less from those idiots? Clowns, they're pigs, they're swine, and they spend their life doing their father's work just as quickly as possible, for his time is short. They really are that bad. And as somebody who's been in the media my entire adult life, radio and television, big companies, ABC, CBS Network, also Clear Channel, which is now iHeartRadio, which is the largest broadcasting company corporation in the world. That's my background. I know what they do. I know how they lie. I know what their agenda is. And I know how they influence and utilize their power, even at the cost of losing ratings and losing money. They don't care. They have an agenda. That's what drives them. And right now, all they're doing is just preaching to their little choir, which, thank God, there were more of us than there were them in the last election. And we were able to accomplish an unprecedented, amazing thing. And that was electing a man again to come in and do what he did his first 4 years as president and turn this country around after we saw 4 years of horrific misdirection and corruption by Joe Biden and the rest of the clowns. And oh my, when I see even photos and pictures of all those people during those 4 years of that reign of terror, it turns my stomach. It really does. I'm like, that nightmare's over. But where do we go from here? We can't stop. We can't go, well, Trump's in, so I don't have to do anything. I can just sit back and relax. That's the worst thing we could ever do and the worst attitude we could ever have. That's nothing but apathy. We can't afford that. We can't let what happened to my guest, Stuart Rhodes, ever happen again to any American. Here's what the report, and can you imagine the feeling of relief when Trump was elected again? All the people who were languishing in jails and prisons because they were merely there on January 6th, 2021 at the Capitol building. Can you imagine what they felt when they got the word like Stuart did here?
But we got lockdowns, but we're listening on the radio, and we heard President Trump say that he's going to be taking action for the J6 hostages. That's when I knew for sure. But I always knew he was going to do it. You know, I had no doubt. I had full faith in him doing it.
So, what do you want to say to Trump right now?
Just thank you.
What emotions did you feel?
Absolutely.
When the pardon came down?
Just of course relief. You know, but like I said, I knew it was coming. Joy, gratefulness.
So, is
right?
January 6th a day to be proud of, or it's unfortunate, or how do you...
I think it's a mix. I think it's unfortunate that anyone went inside because it made it easy for the bad guys to shut down the valid challenges to the elector slates. I think that's unfortunate, but it's understandable because we knew the election was being stolen. It's understandable if we were upset. Now, most people that went inside, they walked in through doors already opened by somebody else. They were not told they were trespassing. They just, in fact, some cops waved them in, and so you had it basically it's entrapment.
What are you going to do now?
Well, I'm going to go report to my probation officer. That's the first step I got to do. I got to convince everybody.
Never again. We cannot let that happen ever again. It was horrible. And welcome to the show. Welcome to Do Not Talk. Stuart Rhodes, what's up, buddy?
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being had. And
bet.
I'm borderline amazing. I think you're the seventh or eighth J6er I've had on, and I think we're already forgetting what happened when I was telling a friend of mine earlier today. I got Stuart Rhodes on. Oh, really? Who's he? Founder of the Oath Keepers. What's that? He was a
Yeah,
J6er. He was a
that's it.
J6er, and and this guy's dialed in. He goes, "What is that?" Like, dude, are you serious? So we can't let people forget what they did and what happened. I know you're traveling right now, and you took the
Yeah, my
time to come on
apologies.
and be with. I have no,
I'll
don't
be I'll be
apologize.
able to I'll be able to pull over here in a few minutes.
That's
We'll be
all
passing
right.
around.
Listen, it's worth it. I'm glad you're on. So nobody even knew what a Proud Boy was. I was familiar with them. I'm involved in the military. I can't even talk about it because of my political stance. I would be probably kicked out. But suffice it to say, I am still involved with the military. Um, and I had no, I can't belong to clubs. I can't join clubs.
Right.
So when I found out about the Proud Boys and dealt with them here in California, where I am, at an actual protest that we had going on at the Capitol building in Sacramento, we had Proud Boys there, and I got to talk to some of them, and I found out what they do and what they're all about, and I'm like, wow, that's noble. Actually, that's quite
Yeah.
impressive.
Well, so I'm the founder of Oath Keepers.
No,
So
no,
there
I
are
know
two.
that. No, no,
Okay,
no. I'm
I
getting to
got you.
that. I'm getting
Oh,
to that.
okay. Yeah, there's two different groups,
Um,
but we've worked together before though.
no, I understand. I understand that.
Okay. Okay.
So, and then that debate happened, presidential debate, and Chris Wallace, Mr. Fox News, was pressing President Trump on the Proud Boys and wanting him to denounce them. And he said, "What was it? Stand by is one of the things he
Stand
said."
back and I think he said stand back and stand by.
Yeah, he didn't say
Yeah.
stand down, stand by, which there is a distinction. And then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose, and everybody worked diligently to make the Proud Boys come across as some kind of right wing government subversive group, and it worked. It worked very quickly to pollute what they're all about. Enrique Tarrio, uh, one of the presidents of the Proud Boys, is, as far as I know, I don't think he's been released yet. I think he's
No,
still
he
in
has.
prison.
No,
Oh, he
he's
has
out.
been released. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
He
He was pardoned.
he wasn't even there. He was in frickin' Florida. He wasn't even there, and he got 20 years. It was
You got
insane what happened. So then I start hearing about the Oath Keepers, and I'm
right.
like, who are they? What are they all about? Why don't you tell us?
So Oath Keepers is an organization I founded in 2009, and I was part of the Ron Paul campaign in 2008. And when I realized, the Republican Party is as corrupt internally as the Democratic Party, just as the Democrats stole the nomination from Bernie Sanders, same thing happened to Ron Paul in 2008.
Yep.
He should have won. He would have won the primary if not for the internal corruption in the GOP. So I saw that and I realized our political class in this country in both major parties are sellouts and are corrupt and are oath breaking constitution violators. And so I kind of had enough of politics and I decided I needed to reach out to the guys with the guns, the guys in the military and police who would be, and we also put in firefighters. I was a firefighter. I'd been a paratrooper in the Army. So I wanted to reach out to all the first responders and the guys at the tip of the spear who would be given orders to violate the rights of the American people. And I wanted to encourage them to, learn more about the Constitution we all swore to defend, but also to be committed and resolute that they're not going to obey unconstitutional orders that would violate Americans' rights. And a big flagship example back then was Hurricane Katrina, where you had police officers brought from all over the United States, to help. Um, Unfortunately, obeying unconstitutional orders to violate the rights of the American people. They were going house to house under the orders of a Democrat anti-gun mayor and a Democrat anti-gun police chief. They were confiscating guns. So that was a big wake-up call. But in the United States, right here domestically, we need to make sure our police officers and military, National Guard and military, understands where the lines are in the Constitution and in particular the Bill of Rights. So that was the impetus for starting Oath Keepers. Was I knew that our political class didn't care about the Constitution, and I wanted to throw a monkey wrench in the powers that be and their plans. I wanted them to worry that if they're giving out orders that go too far and violate the rights of the people, I want them to worry about those orders being followed. And I think it was successful. If you look at Bundy Ranch, the standoff that happened at Bundy Ranch, I think they did not go kinetic, did not drop the hammer on the Bundy family and all their supporters, because they were concerned and worried about what would happen within the ranks of the military and among all of us veterans. So that was the whole mission of Oath Keepers.
People don't realize the significance of that oath, oath of office, and you and I have sworn the same oath. Here's how important it is. If you think it's just become words and doesn't really mean anything to people, well, if that's the case, then why in the state of California are so many politicians on the left not even taking their oath? They're supposed to. That's part of the job. That's part of the requirements. They're not taking their oath. Why is that? It's next level responsibility for them, especially if legal action is taken against these horrific, tyrannical things that they are doing. That oath is so important. In California, they took out the under God. Under God, they took that out.
Right.
This is how important this. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I agree. And here's the thing though, is most politicians, when they're sworn in, they raise their right hand, put their other hand on the Bible, and they swear they're going to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. But what they really are swearing is allegiance to their party and to the uniparty, to the deep state. That's this reality. So, those of us in the military, we understand it, have a different feeling about it. But when it comes to the politicians, 99.9% of them don't give a damn about the Constitution or the oath. They just say it as words they have to say to get in the position of power, where they all become millionaires. They go, magically all become millionaires. So that's just reality. That's why I don't worry about politicians. I focused on the men in the military, and hopefully among the police, who still have honor, a sense of honor, and are willing to do the right thing. Now, the sad thing is, we saw during COVID, we saw police officers all over the country obeying blatantly unconstitutional, edicts coming down from the executive branch in each state, right. from governors, from mayors, from county commissioners, just naked fiat declarations of power that weren't even passed by the legislature. So it was pretty bad. And so, that's kind of a wake-up call for us, is that just because someone's a police officer, you cannot assume, just because they're a conservative police officer, they might be on your side. I had corrections officers when I was arrested under false charges of J6 and held for a total of 3 years. But over a year of that was solitary confinement. The day of my arrest, all through pre-trial, during trial, and after trial, I actually had corrections officers apologize to me, saying, we know you're innocent, we know you're a political prisoner, we really feel bad about this, but they're still going to obey their orders. They're still going to, if I would try to escape, they would have shot me. So they might feel bad about it, but they're going to go ahead and go along because it's their job. Same goes for all the cops during COVID.
So they have broken their oaths.
Well, period. I mean, look, this
they're going against the Constitution.
Well, here's the reality though, and this is an important lesson for all of us. This is why the founders, in their wisdom, did not trust standing armies. That's why they wanted a militia system, which is supposed to be all able-bodied men are still, to this day, under federal statute, still defined as being the unorganized militia. And the organized militia is the National Guard. So we're all supposed to be the militia. Of course, us into the units where we should be in every county. There should be something that should be done. It's not being done. But the point I'm making is that the founders understood human nature. That's why they didn't trust standing armies. And hey, a professional police officer, what is the difference between a professional military officer whose lifetime career is wrapped up in being in the military? That's his profession. How is that any different than a professional police officer who also has his whole career, his way of being, his own identity is all wrapped up in being a cop? It's just human nature that they're more likely to go along to get along. A National Guardsman, in sharp contrast, that's not his full-time gig. It's a part-time gig. A militia person, remember the militia, same thing. You're not being paid, you're a volunteer. You might get paid when you go on deployment, but the rest of the time, you're a volunteer. That's the wisdom of the founders right there. We should not have large standing armies of either military or police, federal law enforcement or local, in this country. It should be elected sheriffs, maybe a couple deputies to run the jail. And if they need any other help, they should have to call up a posse like they used to do out west, of us, we the people, and which should be the militia of the people or the posse of the people in the county. That is your force multiplier. That's a safe place to put power. Otherwise, put power in the hands of professionals, their mortgage, their job, their retirement, their pension, all of that's tied to them obeying orders, and they're more likely to obey. It's just the way it is. Doesn't make it okay. Doesn't put them off the hook. But that's just the reality we need to realize and recognize and deal with. That's all I'm saying.
Are the Oath Keepers still around?
Well, yes and no. So we're still under attack. There is still lawfare going on to destroy us. We're still co-defendants with President Trump in two big lawsuits. One by members of Congress, and the other one by some Capitol Police officers. It's the same crap. It's the same nonsense, false allegations that President Trump conspired with Oath Keepers and Proud Boys to attack democracy. And they actually say that in these lawsuits that we violated the KKK Act, that we're disenfranchised. It's the same nonsense smear that they've from day one. And the demonization of the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers has gone way back. You can look at from inception, since 2009, we were being attacked by Southern Poverty Law Center, ADL, and other groups on the left that masquerade as civil rights groups. What they really are is just
They're
radical
horrible,
left propagandists. Yeah. So we've been demonized from day one. And same for the Proud Boys. Anyone who dares to speak up against their agenda, or anyone who gets in their way, like the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers throughout the Trump administration, we were protecting Trump supporters from Antifa in the streets successfully. Both groups did that, oftentimes together, side by side. So in Berkeley, in downtown Berkeley, California, twice successfully protected a free speech rally in the park downtown Berkeley at Trump's own inauguration. In fact, the first security operation during the Trump administration was January the 20th, 2017. Us Oath Keepers were on the ground in DC providing volunteer escorts for people vulnerable to Antifa. Antifa, yeah, local they pursue people, disabled people, women.
Hang on a quick. I was afraid of that. Dagnabbit. I just knew it was coming. Shoot.
Back on, man. Oh,
Okay, there you go.
I'm back
No, that's
on.
all right. Because what you're saying is so important, and we were missing it. It was
No
breaking
problem.
up terribly. Can you pick it up from somewhere?
Yeah. So throughout the Trump administration, because Antifa all across the country was violently attacking Trump supporters to suppress their free speech, that happened all over the country.
Yeah.
So we stepped up all over the country, and the Proud Boys did also, to protect Trump supporters. We protected free speech rallies. We provided volunteer security for VIPs who were under death threat. So, for example, in Oregon, in Portland, there was going to be a rally, and it was being put on. I believe it was Patriot Prayer was putting on this rally at the federal courthouse grounds in downtown Portland, and they picked that, which was pretty smart actually, because they knew that if they didn't want to have to try to ask the local government for a permit for a rally, right? So they went to the federal courthouse and got a permit to use the federal courthouse. So they're out of jurisdiction of a local governor or mayor. So, but there was a Multnomah County chair of the GOP wanted to go speak. He was invited to speak, but he was afraid to go speak because he was afraid of being attacked by Antifa. And so
And that's why they do this. That's the
that's what,
bottom
yeah,
line.
to intimidate. That's right. So we provided a personal security detail for him, a 4-man detail. I was on it. So we had 4 of us escorted him in and out successfully, peacefully. And now, here's the thing about Antifa. Never in our experience
They're
across the
cowards.
country, oh yeah, they're cowards. And never, not one time, do they ever attack anyone that we were protecting or attack any of us. We were always able to deter them with our presence because they're cowards and they know that our cops, like a retired Oath Keeper cop, can carry anywhere he wants. He has Leosa credentials, he can carry, nationwide. So in downtown Berkeley, for example, they had a strong emergency ordinance they passed that no one could have any weapons in the park. That's what they said, right? Well, the cops told our police officers, hey, we're not going to try to tell other retired police officers they can't have guns. So our cops were able to carry guns. And so I think Antifa knew that. That's why they didn't want to dance. Now, of course, when they came running into the park, when the rally was getting ready to start, Antifa showed up. They didn't obey any of these emergency edicts. They came in with chains in their hands. It was like gangs of New York, clubs and homemade shields, all kinds of nonsense. But they came charging towards us and then stopped cold about 20 yards away and just didn't close. They didn't want to dance. So my point is, we were successful in deterring them non-violently. And this goes for DC and all the way to J6 too. We were in DC for 9 prior operations before January the 6th. We were there in November and December guarding events and speakers. And then that's why we were in DC on January the 6th also. We were there to protect 2 permitted events on Capitol grounds. One was for Latinos for Trump. Another one was for Ali Alexander's event right outside the East Capitol doors. That's why we were there that day. And to do our normal, we had a personal security detail for Roger Stone was one of our assignments. And we had a detail that was protecting some of the speakers for Ali Alexander's event, escorting them from Trump's rally. They were in the VIP section of Trump's rally to the Capitol to go and speak. And this is an important point I want to make about January the 6th, is that it's not true. It's the big part of the big lie is that, everyone was down there at the Ellipse and they only went to the Capitol because Trump told them to go there. That's just garbage. There were like 7 or 8 or 9 permitted events already scheduled all around the Capitol. We were protecting 2 of those. So people were already planning on going from President Trump's rally at the Ellipse to the Capitol to go and attend other events around the Capitol, as they had done in November and December. In all of those situations and all of those different events, there were permitted events all around the Capitol. So it's not some kind of weird anomaly for Trump supporters to go to the Capitol. They've been doing that at least two prior times in 2020 to protest the theft of the election. So that's an important point that we need to understand. Folks were already planning on going from the Ellipse rally to the Capitol. That's what President Trump said. And now you're going to go to the Capitol. He's talking about what they were already planning on doing, because they were going to go peacefully protest and additional rallies around the Capitol where members of Congress were going to speak. Like Margaret Taylor Greene, Josh Hawley, a bunch of members of Congress were scheduled to speak at Ali Alexander's event right outside the East Capitol doors. And Roger Stone was scheduled to be the keynote speaker at that event. So as soon as President Trump's rally ended, they were already planning on walking to the Capitol, having members of Congress speak about the election, hopefully with good results from challenging it, right? That's what they were hoping for. That was the plan that day, to hold rallies, not to attack democracy or any other nonsense that's been spun up. It's complete garbage.
Yep. I'm quite convinced it was our own gift, California's gift to the world. Nancy Pelosi was the one calling the shots and orchestrating the whole damn thing, because people were there for other events and there were already guest speakers anyway. It was to have a presence and a show that we know something was wrong here.
That's
In
right.
our Constitution, it spells out if there's any question in an election, especially of that size and power, do it over again. You don't even accept the results. And that's what this was supposed to be about, that a reminder of that. So people were showing up for these other events anyway, but then they opened up the gates. They moved the barriers. They started waving people in. Law enforcement, uniformed people and personnel waving people into the Capitol building. Like you said, no signs, no notice. You're not supposed to be here. This is trespassing. And all of a sudden, it was like,
Right.
well, while you're here, you might as well come on in. Then they had you.
Right. So it was a
Eric Christie.
manipulation. That's
Go
right.
ahead.
I would call it a manipulation. You had a valid protest
They had
with
to escalate it because you weren't
with
turning violent like they wanted. They had to escalate it, and that's how they did it. I'm convinced of it.
yeah, and that's how you get Trump supporters who are otherwise overwhelmingly pro law enforcement. How do you get Trump supporters to fight cops? You have cops use excessive force against women and kids,
And they did.
and that's what happened that day.
They were
Now,
firing rubber bullets into the crowd.
right, that was on the west side. We were on. This is like what's kind of ironic about it all is I'm on the east side. I was trying to. I didn't go inside the Capitol, but I'm on the northeast side, just trying to locate my security teams. I wanted to keep them out of whatever was going on the west side. I knew there was some stuff going on there. I couldn't tell how bad it was or what it was because it's a huge building and a huge crowd. You can't see all this stuff. So on the east side where I was, there was no violence. People just singing patriotic songs. And then the doors open on someone opened the doors from the inside, and the Oath Keepers who were on the steps on the east side, they were funneled in along with a bunch of other people. Some of them were carried in. When you're in a big crowd like that, you can't move
Yeah,
backwards, and the crowd's
exactly.
going
You're
forwards.
not going anywhere but
You're like
along
a
with the
toothpaste
crowd.
tube.
Yeah.
Yeah. When someone stomps on the toothpaste tube, you're going to go out the toothpaste tube, So there you go. So, but what's really sick about the whole thing is that like my guys, Oath Keepers, they didn't attack any cops. I'm not blaming the guys that got in fights with cops. Like I said, if you use excessive force, if you're a police officer using excessive force, you shouldn't be surprised that red-blooded American patriots are going to react negatively to that, and they might give you a punch in the nose to protect somebody with your excessive force. Don't be surprised. So I don't blame the guys at all for that. But the ironic thing, though, is that none of the Oath Keepers did any of that. But because of who we were, we were one of the two groups they were demonizing and hating on for so long that when they saw our guys go inside the building, they were like, "Oh, this is our golden opportunity to make this into something it's not." So they assigned a role. Trump cast as the kingpin, like a mob kingpin. Enrique Tarrio, leader of the Proud Boys, myself, leader of the Oath Keepers, were cast as Trump's lieutenant. And our guys are the Nazi shock troops. To this day, that's the narrative. That's the false narrative, is that President Trump was the kingpin and we were following his orders. Complete garbage. It really is. It's sick.
Is everything okay? You still there?
Oh yeah, you're good. I'm just let them give you a chance to talk.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Wow.
So one more thing
Eric
I can say about
Christie.
that. So
Yeah.
the Oath Keepers that went inside the building didn't go in until 20 minutes after Congress had recessed. So 20 minutes prior, Congress recessed. They also went in like 25 minutes after other people had entered the Capitol. We found out after the fact. So they didn't lead anything. They went through doors already opened by somebody else from the inside. They didn't breach anything. So it's just really a strange narrative that they're selling, that somehow we were the masterminds. We didn't bring guns. It's frankly an insult to my competency as a trained soldier, Capitol, to go do a prayer circle 20 minutes after Congress already recessed, and then help police, which is what they did inside. They helped cops. 3 different occasions, Oath Keepers helped cops there in or at the Capitol that day. All of that was brushed under the rug in the narrative, and instead it's like, oh no, the Oath Keepers accused of leading the attack, and the Proud Boys, same thing. It's a completely false narrative. And the jury was basically told at the end they could infer an implied conspiracy to have been formed in the minds of the Oath Keepers, an unspoken conspiracy. As they walked up the steps together, that's when the jury could say, well, we think that they came to an agreement, unspoken agreement as they walked up the steps. And then they were told you can use their free speech as state of mind evidence to support a conviction. That's what they did in the end. All smoke and mirrors nonsense. In the end, you went inside, therefore you're guilty. That's what it was. And I'm standing on the outside, didn't even go inside, but I was cast as the mastermind. And so the jury was told you can infer from his political speech that he intended to overthrow with force the U.S. government. all my protected free speech, completely, I know where the lines are. I'm a Yale Law graduate. I know where the lines are in the First Amendment. I never cross them. I don't ever incite imminent violence or imminent unlawful action that's likely to occur. That's the standard for Brandenburg
No,
versus
you didn't have
Ohio.
to. There were
Yeah.
FBI undercover agents who were there doing that.
Oh yeah. Well, that's right. So there was incitement on their side. Definitely was. But it's just so frustrating. It really is to this day have people who swallow that narrative and think that that was my plan. Really, that was my plan. I'm going to send a car salesman. Kelly Meggs, my Florida leader, nice guy, but he's a car salesman. I could have sent in, Jeremy Brown. I was going to send an attack team into the Capitol. Don't you think I would have my Special Forces combat vet, Jeremy Brown, go lead the team?
And if it was
But
a true
no.
insurrection, you'd actually have weapons. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Well,
bad
another thing,
job.
our another team leader for us that day, operations leader over the whole thing, is Michael Green, a black combat vet. He was a sapper in the Army. He's an explosives expert. So if I really wanted to have an insurrection, don't you think I would have had him cook up IEDs and car bombs? But
Right.
no, we didn't do any of that. We had guys walk inside unarmed, do a prayer circle, and help cops. That's my grand plan. It's so ridiculous. It really is.
I don't know
It's
how much time
comical.
you have. How much time have you
I'm
got?
good.
How much time?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Um, walk us through it. I ask everybody because everyone had a different experience about what happened. I mean, I already know what happened, but I want to know about what happened when you realized, holy crap, they're raining down terror on me. What was that moment? Did they come pounding on your door at 6 a.m. like they like to do with the
Well, no,
candy
that
crew and guns drawn?
well, the first thing that happened is that night when we were still in DC, we heard they were going. The cops to the hotels where they suspect Trump was to that. I'm hearing now. We're like gathering outside.
Damn it. I think we're about to lose you again. Yep, sure enough. Dag nabbit. I'm not sure where you are, but the service has been spotty. But just
There
to
you
pick it
are.
up where you left off, you
I'm
said,
in.
yeah, I'm not sure where you are, but
Yeah, I said.
service
So
kind of spotty.
we started hearing
They went.
out of the gate.
They actually. You heard that
They
they were
started
going to
spinning
the
the
hotel
narrative.
where Trump
Yeah.
supporters were.
Yeah, so we heard that night. We're like, hey, we're hearing rumors that they're going to go arrest Trump supporters. So we're like, well, we're not going to sit here like idiots. Let some dork from because at the time it was the governor of Virginia was not a nice guy. He was a lefty. So we're like, we're not going to sit here. Let's go ahead and go home. So I drove back to Texas. But then because some of our people had gone up the steps right out of the gate, the New York Times and a bunch of other places, they focused on the Oath Keepers walking up the steps, and they would highlight that picture of the Oath. They called it an assault stack, a bunch of nonsense. You're walking upstairs through a crowd. How do you do that if not in a line?
Right.
You don't walk abreast up
No.
steps that full of people. It's just total garbage. But they called it an assault stack. The media called it an assault stack out of the gate. In a
They
military
don't even
assault
know what
stack,
the hell
Oath
that
Keepers.
means. They don't. They
They
never
don't. Yeah,
even
they have no
use those
idea.
words together until somebody told them, "Here's
But
what
they
you say."
Yes, that's right. So the narrative was set here, and here's where the narrative was set really early. Benny Thompson, that's the congressman from Mississippi, who later went on to chair the so-called J6 Select Committee, right? On February the 16th, 2021, just weeks after J6, he filed a lawsuit along with other members of Congress against President Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, alleging a conspiracy among all of us to attack the Capitol. February 16, 2021. That's how early that narrative was set. That just tells you what the narrative is. That's their destination. That's the false reality they want to create. And everything that happened after that was just about making that quote unquote true. Just all a bunch of kabuki theater and show trials to reinforce that false narrative. That's how it went. So out of the gate, we had Oath Keepers being arrested, and then Proud Boys. And out of the gate, you can go back and look at the old media stuff. We're being labeled as the leaders of the insurrection, even though my guys, like I said, didn't lead anything. Went in after other people had already been in there like 25 minutes. So long after Congress recessed. But because of who we are, it's just like in the Soviet Union, where their watchword for the secret police was, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. In our case, it was Oath Keepers and Proud Boys designated as the bad guys. And now let's do prosecutions and make that true. And that's what happened. And because I didn't go inside, it took them about a year to just over a year to cook up false evidence against me. They had to coerce other Oath Keepers into dishonoring. We had two guys that dishonored themselves and pled guilty to seditious conspiracy, even though they were innocent, and
No,
signed on to a
that
stack.
doesn't help
Oh, they did.
anybody.
Yeah, I know. Well, here's the thing: they threatened all of us with life in prison. And, we all got that letter. We all got a letter from the prosecutors saying that you've been charged with seditious conspiracy, which is analogous to treason, and we're going to ask the court for life in prison as a sentence. You know, I'm not for sale. I don't care what they do to me. So I threw mine in I was in solitary confinement when I got mine. And I just wadded it up and threw it in the toilet and flushed it. That's where that crap belongs. But we had a couple guys who did, you know, bend the knee. They just I guess you can call it bitching out.
Sorry.
They just completely submitted and rolled over and agreed
I'm
to that.
sorry.
They promised they wouldn't go to prison, and they not only agreed to lie about themselves, but they also agreed to lie about the rest of us, threw us all under the
That's
bus.
exactly.
And frankly, I consider them traitors.
They are.
They said what they did is they betrayed not just us, they betrayed President Trump too, because all of this by
They
saying
betrayed
yes,
all of
we've
us.
confessed. They fed the false narrative. The media could say, "See, two more have
And that's what they
confessed that there
did
was a
all over the
conspiracy
place.
with
Yeah.
President Trump." Yeah, so that's what happened, and it wasn't just among the Oath Keepers. There were some Proud Boys that did the same thing, and sadly, a lot of people, and they're being coached by their lawyers to do this too. This is the problem I have with the legal profession. The legal profession, the default in legal profession is dishonor and lies. Agree to lie about other people, agree to, roll over and speak lies because that's going to keep you out of prison. That's what they're being advised to do. And what about honor? What about the crime of perjury? What about the sin of bearing false witness? All that goes out the window and they're being coached by their lawyers. Doesn't excuse them doing it, but that's the problem we have in this country. The legal profession is part of the problem. They all know it's a lie. The defense lawyers know their client's innocent. The guy who's being coerced knows he's innocent. The prosecutors know he's innocent. They don't care. They want to coerce him as a way to get President Trump. It was all about getting President Trump, putting him in prison, disqualifying him from being able to run for office under the 14th Amendment. All that's the whole goal of it was and also demonize the MAGA movement. That's the
Yes.
point, is to attack us and demonize us and put him in prison if they could. None of that worked, because here's the bottom line: what man means for evil, God will use for good. That's the bottom line. All they did to him blew up in their face. All they did to us in the long run is blowing up in their face. I'm stronger now than I've ever been in my life. And I know other J6s feel the same way. Yes, we have scars. Yes, we have, trauma. Of course, we went through. It was pretty bad. I went through over a year in
They
solitary
treated
confinement.
you horribly.
And solitary is used to try to
Of
coerce
course.
you. But like I said, though, I have my frame of reference as a Christian is that I know that God will use for good what man means for evil. And I also saw myself as a veteran. I saw myself as a prisoner of war. And so I'm not going to let my enemies have the satisfaction of breaking me. And I'm never going to aid the enemy. That's what disturbs me about these two guys were veterans. Both of them were Army combat vets. I don't understand how they can be so resolute. I'm sure that when they were in the military in Iraq, if they'd been captured by the enemy, at least I hope so, that they would not have aided the enemy. But when they're being advised here with dealing with domestic terrorists or domestic enemies of the Constitution, they're being coerced. They roll over and agree to aid the enemy. That's how I see it. So that's what kept me strong, is those two things: my perspective about being a POW, and my perspective about being a Christian. So
The very first J6er I had on, when he was still in jail, they had not even been prosecuted or anything. They're still in a Washington, D.C. frickin' gulag. And you're being horribly mistreated, horribly, by pieces of crap who also have sworn the same oath to serve and protect and to defend the Constitution, but yet they're treating their fellow citizens, fellow Americans horribly, denying you all kinds of
Right.
rights, denying you food, denying you. It was awful what they were doing to you. So he was still in jail. And it was one of those, you have 15 minutes. When it was on the phone. We couldn't even see him. It was
Yeah.
one of those deals. And he said 4 or 5 times, this could all end tomorrow if Congress would get involved. He kept saying that.
When was this? I'm not sure that's true, sadly. I mean, let's put it this way. They should not have certified that election. It was blatantly illegal and unconstitutional. Congress should have sent it back to the states, just as John Eastman wrote. I wrote the same analysis. It's not rocket science. Article 2 is pretty plain. Article 2 says that the state legislature shall determine the manner for selecting electors. And anytime you have an election that's not pursuant to the manner, to the method established by the state legislature, you have an invalid election. It's unconstitutional. So when in the name of COVID, when they were setting aside state election laws, which means directly violating state election law, in all the swing states especially, they're mass mail-in ballots, unsecured drop boxes, no chain of custody. All of that was directly in violation of state election law, making it illegal under state election law. That triggered a violation of Article 2. That's made it unconstitutional. So yes, Congress should have kicked back the slates back to the state legislatures and said, these were not done constitutionally. You need to sit in a special session and elect your own electors. State legislatures still retain the authority if they want to go back to the way they used to do it and just pick their own
And that's
electors.
that's
You
where
can't run an election.
Vice President Mike Pence played such a pivotal role and failed
Yeah.
us all.
Well, that's what's so disgusting about his book. His book is called So Help Me God, How I Honored My Oath. He completely violated. He's a complete, he's projecting. He's accusing us of what he did, and he's putting on himself a mantle of being an oath keeper when he's an oath breaker. He had absolutely every authority and responsibility to say, no, these are not constitutionally enacted slates. They have to be sent back to state legislatures. That's why the founders put the oath in the Constitution. Everyone's responsible for enforcing the Constitution. You don't get a pass because I'm only a ceremonial role. He has a responsibility as president of the Senate to say no and to work with the other Republicans to challenge it. That's what should have happened. That's why, the one thing that we can say about J6 is that we got played in this sense. It would have been better if no one had gone inside the Capitol, but I don't blame the people who did. Because, like you said, they were entrapped, and the bad guys wanted.
We've seen the video.
So
We've seen the video of them being waved in.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah. So, but it would have been better, obviously, if that hadn't happened, because it gave the bad guys their excuse. Because when they reconvened later in the night, they didn't even do a proper quorum. They set aside all the normal procedures for challenging. They just rubber stamped it. So that entire election was unconstitutional, including the ratification of it in the Congress. So yeah, so I get that. But once you were in the gulag under I think Biden was an imposter. I don't believe he was a legitimate president. Once you're in a fiat kangaroo court system where you've got an usurper on the throne, basically, in that system, there's not a whole lot Congress is going to do about that, especially this Congress. And look at what we're going through right now. You can't even get these Republicans to sign on to impeaching these judges who are being obviously blatant obstructionist partisans. They should be impeached or removed from the bench. I don't understand why that's not happening. It just drives me crazy. But, that's the nature of the beast. So what we have right now, and this is the positive thing, is the base is rock solid. I've gone and talked to people all over Texas, where I live now, talked to people in other states. Our base is rock solid, and the base is bigger now than it's ever been. When I was in prison, one of the big wake-up calls for me is that 99% of the inmates love Trump. They respect him as a businessman. He signed the First Step Act, which means they get to go home sooner. They respect him as a man. When he got shot, in my unit, when we were watching on television, watching on the news, we have TVs in my unit, and I was in FCI Cumberland in prison, and they kept replaying, him raising his fist in the air. The other guys in my unit were like, hell yeah, Trump's a legit OG, which means original gangster. It's like the biggest compliment you give a guy in prison. All of them. I mean, like, yeah, like no question, man, because they saw him react like a warrior, react like a man, and they respect that. That's when I knew he had won the working class male vote across the country, black, white, Hispanic. He won that right there by his actions. That's why I got this tattoo when I was in prison.
Yeah,
I got
let's
this
see it.
tattoo right
Let's
here.
see it.
That's Trump putting his fist in the air. I don't know if you can see it
Pull your
very
sleeve
well,
up.
but
Pull your sleeve up.
okay, yeah. So yeah, I got this while I was in
you were in
prison to
prison.
commemorate that. Yeah, that's one of my prison
So that's
tattoos.
the real
Yeah.
deal ink art right there.
Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
There it is.
Man, check that.
There it is. Yeah. That's not bad for prison
No, brother,
tattoo.
I think it's
But
quite
yeah,
extraordinary, and the only color
that's
in it
when
is the red on the face, the blood.
that's right. Yeah.
Wow, well done, well done, son.
Yeah, I paid extra for that
Yes,
red
you
ink. That
did.
was hard to
I
find
don't want to know what they
in
used
prison.
to get red ink because
That was a gel pen, actually. It was a gel pen that
Was
happened
it?
to be a red gel pen that I did a little test on my hand, make sure it's gonna stick.
Oh,
Yeah. But yeah,
oh
it
my
worked pretty good.
goodness.
But anyway, I got that to commemorate that moment because that's when he won. That's when he won the election. And also that's when we all knew, and he knew. I believe he knows. He said this, right? He knows that God's hand was on him that day, and he was saved that day for a purpose. And obviously, that the purpose is to, to do what he's doing right now, to do his best to save our country. But he needs our help. He can't do it by
Right.
himself.
That's what I was saying
It's
earlier.
really
Don't
sad.
sit back and just go, okay, you
Yeah,
won, so I don't have to do
can't.
anything anymore. No, it's more vital than ever that we get involved with our local elections. And Republicans, I don't know where you stand politically. I'm a Republican. I will stay a Republican as long as they stay pro-life and pro-traditional marriage and pro-2A. When they drop that out of the
Right.
platform, I'm gone. That's what keeps me a Republican, though, the
Yeah.
fact that they're the only ones who publicly say, yes, this is what we stand for, so I stand with them. But the Republicans
Agreed.
suck
Yeah.
at showing up for primary elections and midterm elections. So here in California, they've set it up where we have what's called a jungle primary. It's the top two vote getters. So we keep having two frickin' Democrats while we're fighting amongst each other and splitting votes. Two Democrats will go to the big main election. And I'm like, what the what? And we're not waking up. We don't show up for midterms and primaries. It's in the teens. It's dismal. We suck. We got to get it better. And General, I'm sure you have great admiration and respect for him like I do. General Flynn said, act locally, impact nationally. We got to start getting involved in what's happening in our cities, our counties, our state. We've got to, including you there in Texas, buddy. You got a lot of people coming in there trying to slip in and lie and act like they are one thing and they're the other. And we're seeing it as Texas was solid red, seems to be going more purple with Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth. These areas, what's the other one? The big one, Austin, Texas. Good heavens, that's the San Francisco of the South, right there. But we got to act locally. We got to act locally and get involved that way. Don't quit, is what I'm trying to encourage you. Don't quit.
And we have to purge the rhinos out of the Republican Party.
Talking about.
Like I'm an old school Ron Paul Republican from way back. So constitutionalist. We got to purge the rhinos out. So that's the problem. Is that the base is rock solid. President Trump is rock solid, but in between you have a lot of posers, a lot of rhinos that are posing as MAGA and America First. They're not legit, and they'll roll right over in the future when the chips are down. That's why, like, I was giving a speech the other day, and I was telling them, when you look at someone you want to support for office, you should support somebody who has proven themselves under pressure. You should be able to look at that person's life and find an example where they stood up and did the right thing, even if it hurt them. So Tulsi Gabbard's a good example. She bucked her own party and they ostracized her, and she decided to walk away, which I think is fantastic. The walk away, the Ron Paul movement, we saw that back in the day. A lot of Democrats crossed over and voted for Ron Paul. That became part of the Ron Paul movement. In fact, we had Democrats. I was in Nevada back then on the Clark County Central Committee. We took it over, and a lot of the folks that we brought in were former Democrats who signed on with Ron Paul because they believed he was sincere in his advocacy for free speech. He was sincerely, pro Bill of Rights and anti-war. and they knew that they could trust him to be legit. They couldn't trust John McCain. They couldn't trust Hillary or Barack Obama. So they came over and voted for Ron Paul. So the same thing happened with Trump. You've got a bunch of people that are former Democrats, and we need to welcome them. We don't change our values. We stand on our rock. But if they want to come stand next to us on that rock, that's fine. Open your doors and let them in. That's why it's important for people to make a different differentiation between the rank and file voters out there who are, voted Democrat or registered Democrat because their mom did or their dad did. There's kind of a family tradition. They're still out there. A lot of them are working class people. A lot of them are crossing over. Welcome them in. You might not agree with them on everything. I'm sure with guns or abortion, you might disagree with someone like look at Robert Kennedy Jr. I'm sure I would probably disagree with him on gun control or probably abortion. Two things that are very important for me. Guns and life are critical. I'm not going to compromise my values on that. But I'm glad he's part of Trump's cabinet because he helped to bring more Democrats over into our side. And when they come over, then we can educate them about all the things we might disagree with them on. We can have a good conversation and talk to them about why we feel the way we do. So that's what I say to people is like, have a big tent mindset when it comes to welcoming people in. Just don't compromise your values, though.
I had so many of my fellow media people tell me, don't have anybody on from Proud Boys, don't have anyone on from the Oath Keepers, don't talk to these people because
Oh, okay.
you, CharLee, you'll be grouped in with that as being sympathetic toward their cause. And the more
And what's wrong with that?
I've done it anyway. And I've literally had my fellow Republicans tell me, you have somebody on from those groups on again, and we're not going to be on your show. We're not going to have anything to do with you.
When,
So be it.
how long ago was
So
this?
be it.
How long
2
ago was
years
that?
ago, 3 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
So be it.
Right.
So be it. You're telling me that they don't have
Right.
they can't have a voice. They can't tell their side of what's going on. Have you even looked into what they do and what they stand for? Or have you just completely accepted the media narrative? What is wrong with you people? If they turn on
Cowardice.
them, what are they going to do to you? And they are. And you're not going to stand up for somebody who's going, we're all about the Constitution. We're all about, if you swear an
Right.
oath, you're going to stick with it, man, or you step down. And protecting
Right.
people who are actually there voicing, again, thank you for what you do. I've been at events where, again, I'm not in any group or club, but I've been protected by you guys. We all have,
Yeah,
hundreds
that's
of
what-
us. And they were encroaching and they were getting violent and they were throwing things. And then you guys showed up. And all of a sudden, those freaking little weaselly cowards with their masked faces went away or stood down. That's
Yeah.
what they do. They're cowards.
Yeah.
They're bullies. They're cowards.
And that's true. I'm glad that I don't regret that. I think it's fantastic that my organization, Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, did that. But that's also true for other people. We had plenty of times around the country where other veterans would join in, bikers would show up, just men. That's the thing is that Antifa can't handle an actual man. just to be blunt,
True.
they just, they're just, it's the stereotype of the soy boy is
Dad's
kind of
home.
true. Yeah, it's
Dad's
right. So
home.
if you're an actual man, you're competent and you know how to handle yourself, they don't want to dance with that. And so I would encourage men around the country. I really believe this is what's needed right now. I think the men need to get off the couch and really get together and organize in their counties. I think the churches need to get active also. I think a lot of our churches, or most of our churches, are dropping the ball,
agree.
are not doing what they
Totally
should
agree.
be doing. They should be a church should be a refuge in the storm. It should be a place that has the capacity for emergency power, emergency heating and water. When everything else around them has gone to hell in a handbasket, that church should be a stronghold. And the men of the church should be organized in security teams. And they should be trained and armed and ready to go. And that church should be the place that everyone goes to get aid from your community. If you're a prepper and you're worried about handing out food to your neighbors, during bad times, the church should be where you go and you donate the food to the church. The church turns around and gives it out. We did that many times when we were doing disaster relief. Did a lot. We had like 14 major hurricane operations. And we would oftentimes use churches as local distribution centers for relief aid. But my point is that churches do step up after a disaster, but I want to see the church get organized and get strong in advance. Like I said, emergency power, lighting, heat, all that kind of stuff, pre-store the necessities that people are going to need when things are, like water, sanitary items, diapers, stuff that people wind up needing, and then food after that. But anyway, the point is that we should get strong as possible, and the men in this country really should be organizing in every county. Whether you want to do it through the veterans organizations, or you want to do it through political groups, MAGA, local MAGA groups, the men don't just get together and talk about politics. Get together and okay, who here has what skill set?
Discuss plan.
Do a
Right.
survey. What was your MOS in the military? Well, I was 11 Bravo 1 Papa, so I was a paratrooper, reconnaissance. So, what was your MOS when you were in the military? What'd you do?
Oh, nothing fancy, nothing like you at all. PAO, Joint Training Command, public affairs officer.
Okay, well that's important too. That's
Media.
useful. So whatever
Media,
your MOS is,
military
you're
media,
trained,
yeah.
right? That's okay. So everyone's got an MOS. So one thing I would say right now, going back to the point of with the militia, is that President Trump has it in his power right now, if he wanted to, he could say, we are dealing with, he's already designated the cartels to be foreign terrorist organizations. He could say this, we are dealing with proxies of Iran, proxies of China. That's what the cartels are. They're just proxies of our. This is like a new Cold War. We're dealing with proxies of our enemies that are coming into this country, infiltrating us with military-age males. Some of them openly organized and violent, like the Tren de Agua or MS-13 or whatever. Other ones, like all the tens of thousands of military-age Chinese males that have come into the country illegally. Who are they and why are they here? I think it's, you'd be a fool not to understand that they're here for future use
Absolutely.
against this country. So we need to say, okay, President Trump could say this. He could say, given the situation we're in with military-age males from enemy nations, including proxies, known proxies like Hamas, Hezbollah, or whatever, Al Qaeda, we know they're here in our country. So therefore, I am calling up the militia of the United States. All able-bodied men, 17 to 45, are the militia, according to federal statute. All the way to age 65 for anyone who's a military veteran because of our training. He could say, I'm calling you up under federal statute as my authority as commander-in-chief, and I'm calling you to organize in your counties. I want all the veterans to step up and organize and lead the organization of all the other men. And the veterans, your responsibility is to, one, do the job you're trained to do in the military, but two, serve as trainers for all the other men. Get them trained and organized into county units all across the country, and then I'm going to deploy you down to the border. And you're going to rotate in and spin a tour on the border to get yourself some experience on the border. That's what he can do right now. I think he should do that. No one can stop him from doing that. He's the commander-in-chief of the military services.
Right.
Unless they were to go back and try to revise the militia laws, that's what he could do legally. So that's what I think he
You
should
hear
do.
what he just said?
So
That's
that
what
would
he could do legally.
imagine.
Don't throw this aside. If you're listening to Stuart Rhodes right now and they're going, "Oh, he's talking militia. Oh, that's scary." Stop that. The word militia is actually in our U.S. Constitution.
And statutes.
Exactly. So he's completely right. This is how we are designed as our constitutional republic to function. Instead, we're all about the government taking care of us from cradle to grave, including our own protection. No thanks.
It'd be better if our states would organize our militia systems, but they don't. I live in Texas. Abbott's never going to do it. Even in Florida.
You've got a great state
DeSantis
guard
is not
there
going
in
to do
Texas. So a really admirable, well done state guard.
They're okay. It's a tiny fraction of the men of Texas.
Then I'm in California, cool. So I might be easily impressed by anybody else.
Yeah, it's my point though is that it should be all of us.
Yeah,
it should be. If Abbott, the governor of Texas, had wanted to close the border, he could have called up all the men of Texas in an instant and sent them down to the border as the militia. Under Texas statutes and under Texas Constitution, he could have done that. He hasn't done it. But Trump can do it. President Trump can do it as commander-in-chief over all of us. And he could organize us in our counties and give us a standing order that I want you to stay organized in your counties and train together. So for the entire 4 years of his administration, whatever we have left now, we could be organized in our county. And then by then it's too late, right? Say he leaves office in in 2028 or 2020, 2028, 2029, and some other, some worst case scenario, some Democrat gets in the White House, right? It's too late. He can't unring that bell. The men are now organized in every county. That's what he should do. That's what I think he should do it. Should get us all
I
squared
hope you're
away and
right.
organized.
I've had a lot of people
We
ask
don't need to
me,
get paid.
CharLee, you think everybody's talking there's going to be a civil war? And I go, if there is, God forbid there is not. But if there is, it will not be citizen against citizen. It will be citizen against non-citizen. That's a whole.
Well, it'll be a mix because you've got people here, sadly, who've been brainwashed. I'm seeing them in the streets. Young college kids, a lot of homeless people they recruit. They're brainwashed to believe that we're Nazis. They really believe it. They really believe that Trump supporters are racist Nazis who want to kill them if they're not white. So there are people like that have been brainwashed that way. So that's sadly a reality. Our colleges are Marxist indoctrination centers. They're brainwashing our youth. So that's why it's good what Charlie Kirk's doing with what's it called, Turning Points USA. Any effort to get it in there with the college kids is good. Silver lining though is that I think a lot of young people now are starting to wake up. They can go on the internet and look things up for themselves. I think that's, it's not monolithic. Just because they've been to college or even high school doesn't mean that they're going to automatically be a leftist. So we always want to reach out to the young people and say, hey, here's the reality. Like us, if you look at the propaganda in the media, they're like, oh, the Oath Keepers, one of the most violent right-wing radical organizations. Like, there's no violence. Show me the violence. Show me video of an Oath Keeper even punching anybody. You're not going to find it. No, we never shot anyone. We never pepper sprayed anybody. Never hit anyone with a club. Never stabbed anyone. Never punched or kicked anybody. Just in our entire history. You just can't find it. But yet they'll still call us that. That's the slur. That's the demonization they do. So that's what's kind of disturbing about, like you were saying earlier, you got people on our own side. So if someone is attacked by the leftist media and demonized enough, a lot of these Republicans will be like, oh, I can't associate with that person. They're controversial. And so they buy into the media smear campaign. So of course the deep staters look at that and go, well, that's successful. Let's keep doing that. So the base is rock solid. I think 99% of our people in the MAGA base know it's all nonsense. They're now immune to the propaganda. But your talking heads, like some of your media people, your politicians, they will succumb, even if they know it's crap, they'll succumb to that guy's controversial. It could cause you to lose a sponsor or lose ratings. So they've forgotten why they're here in the first place. What's their purpose? Is their purpose to speak the truth? Right. Well, it should be the truth, right? Stand on the truth.
Not
right?
coerce, not indoctrinate, just inform. That's the media's job, at least on the news side of things. You, of course, have editorialists and so on, but now every single reporter is a freaking editorialist. I hate my own business.
Right.
I've never hated my own business as much as I do now.
It's like me with lawyers. I consider myself a recovering lawyer, like being a recovering alcoholic, because the profession is disgusting. It really is. It's bad.
I agree. I think it's extraordinary. I'd love to have you on again and really get in depth about what happened during those 3 years. I've already had you for over an hour. I appreciate your time more than you know.
I could come back and talk about what it was like in prison, and also,
I want to hear all that.
And what we can do to make our prison system better.
Thank you. Great idea. Great idea. So you're out of Texas. You ever come to California?
I got family in California. That's where I was going to spend my probation, 18 months. Thankfully, that went away. Thank God that was removed. But I was going to be up there in Northern California with my family.
NorCal.
That I know.
That's where I am.
Yeah. So I was born in Fresno. So I got skin in the game in California. So yeah, I'll be in California.
High School.
Okay.
Fresno.
Cool. Yeah, my mom went to Fresno. Yeah. Oh, is that right? Well, my mom went to Fresno High. Okay. So yeah. So
that's awesome, man. I grew up in Bakersfield, but also lived a lot. I'm a San Joaquin Valley boy, that's for sure. Hanford, Fresno, Visalia, Madera, had it surrounded. I
was born there, but I didn't live there. We lived in Sacramento.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's where I live now. Yeah. I'm up here in the Sacramento area.
Okay.
The reason.
Well, when I'm back in California, I'll look you up. We'll go. We'll go have
I'd
some
love
fellowship.
to shake your
Sounds good.
hand. In the
You
meantime,
bet.
if Oath Keepers is still viable and still going, how do we find out more? How do we get involved if we wanted to?
So if I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do with Oath Keepers, but I have a Substack that people can go to. I believe it's Stuart.Rhodes. I think it's Stuart Rhodes at Substack. I'll send you a
Okay.
link. But they can also if they go to my Give Send Go page, that'd
Good.
be helpful too.
Help
Yeah.
people who they've lost everything. They were taken to prison. They were completely cut off from everything. Every J6er I've talked
Right.
to lost everything. Unless they had family or friends to take over and take care of things for them, they lost it all. This is horrible what they
Yeah.
did. So yeah, you got to give, send, go. Lay it on us. I want to hear it. And I encourage you to
Yeah.
please
So
help.
it's gifts. You bet. So it's givesendgo.com/GAF5B. So Golf Alpha Foxtrot 5 Bravo, GAF5B. So, and also I work for Condemned USA now. I'm a national spokesman for Condemned USA. Really
What
good
is that?
outfit that helped us political prisoners. Condemned USA was started by Trennis Evans here in Texas, another Texan. He was a J6er himself. And it's a legal aid group for our side, like an ACLU for our side. And we help provide lawyers for people that are being persecuted for political prisoners. Like one of them's Tina Peters. We're doing an amicus brief right now to support her case being removed from Colorado to the federal courts, where it should be, and then it can be dismissed from
Right.
there. So anywhere
That's the problem.
the
Everybody keeps
left's in
saying, well, how
power,
come Trump just isn't pardoning Tina Peters? Because he can't. It's a state thing
it's a state case, right? So they have to remove it to federal
on
court.
purpose.
That's what we hope is going to happen. That's what we need to do. Is yes. So like I said, anywhere the left is in power, they're going to continue lawfare against you on the
Because
political right.
95% of them
It's just
are
the way.
attorneys.
Well, that's the other problem. A lot of them are
Yeah.
attorneys. So, and they have no respect for the Constitution. Like the ACLU wouldn't come to any of wouldn't even look at any of our cases. They don't care about us. So, all their talk about being for, like my case, is purely free speech. All I did is stand outside the Capitol and speak my mind about the election. So, would they take my case? Of course not, because they don't care about us politically. So, Condemned USA is filling the gap. We will do our best to help people that are political prisoners. And that's why I'm working with them, because they helped me when I was in, and they helped a lot of other J6ers, and we're doing our best to help people like Tina Peters and other
And what's
political
that
prisoners.
website again?
So that's condemnedusa.com. So, and there's a Give Send Go for that organization also. That's givesendgo.com/C as in Charlie USA. C USA.
Okay.
So yeah,
I'm
good
so
outfit.
glad I got to meet you and finally talk to you and get you on the show.
Yeah.
Thank you for spending the time.
You bet.
I appreciate you more
You
than
got
you
it,
know.
brother.
All right, my friend. Stay strong.
I'll
Yes,
see you
sir.
soon.
Yes, sir.
When I go to California, I'll come see you.
Looking
God
forward
bless.
to it.
Take care.
There you go. About this time, I ask you to please support the sponsors to support this show, like MyPillow, Mike Lindell, mypillow.com/Lee, mypillow.com/LEE. My middle name can get you significant savings there. So that's why I say use Lee as your promo code, mypillow.com. And CharLeeSimons.com. You'll find all the different ways to help support me financially, to get involved, to contact me. Everything's in that one place now, which is really cool. Thank you, Rudy Rosselli, for building that website for me. So it's CharLeeSimons.com. But please get involved with guys like Stuart Rhodes there and help them. Encouragement goes so far. So even just giving them a note of encouragement and supporting them really carries weight, goes a long way. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America bless God.